G'day, I'm Nick from Western 4-Wheel Driver magazine, and we've just come back from a 2-week stint up in the Pilbara in Western Australia, and we've visited some beautiful sites and seen some ugly toilet paper lying around these campsites, and it's the worst thing to greet you turning up to such stunning scenery. So I thought today I'd give you a few tips on how to crap in the bush. We might put this up on PooTube with a bit of luck, but the first thing we want to do is make sure that you're comfortable going off into the bush a reasonable distance from the camp in order to do your business and find your way back. And so there are three basic ways that you can use to do that. The first one is to go out with your sun on one side, and when you head back have the sun on the other side so that you know you're walking in the same direction. A second one, if you're smart at it, is to follow your footsteps and your footprints, but the easiest way is to drag your shovel behind you so you leave a really clear trail to follow back to camp. So let's go and have a look at this. Okay, so we've found our spot in the bush, and the first thing I think we should talk about is the spade, because this is a pretty important tool, not just for making a trail to get to your poo site, also for digging a hole so that you can do some business in a hole, but also to fend off any wild dingoes that might decide to have a go at you while you're looking fairly indefensible. The shovel I prefer to use is a post hole shovel, and most of these you'll find are fairly flat across the bottom, but I've actually ground the corners off on here so that I get a bit more of a point, which means that it's easier to dig a hole in hard ground, which is really what we have here. But I've managed to dig a hole about that deep. So there's your spade. If you don't use a seat and you just like to squat in the bush, if you stick this in front of your hole, it's a good straining post for when times are tough. But I don't have that problem at the moment, so I'm just going to put that there, or lie it on the bush, whatever works. Down here we have a homemade dunny seat for old codgers like me whose knees don't make it. It's simply a toilet seat fixed to the frame of a folding chair, and that sits in there like that. That sits over the hole like that, and you can sit there and read and do whatever you like. Before you sit on it, make sure you've got your bag with all your goodies handy, because you don't want to have to get up off the seat halfway through the process. So we've got our hole dug, we've got our dunny set up, we've got the bag, and I guess it's time to have a look at that toilet paper over there while I get prepared. Okay. You thought I was going to have me pants down, didn't you? An interesting thing to consider while you're sitting on the dunny, that 1 gram of your poo contains more bad germs than there are people on this planet. And that's a fact. So it's fairly important that you do it a long way from anybody else when you're out in the bush. As you can see with all the paper that's lying around here, there's plenty of people who come out in the bush who have no bloody idea of how to do the business properly. So anyhow, you're sitting on this lovely toilet, you've done the job, what are you going to do next? Well, we certainly don't want to see any of this paper, so we might grab some of this just to demonstrate what happens once you've done the business, wiped your date, and you're ready to move on. So there's some paper that we picked up from around the place. The important thing is that you don't want this paper lying around once you're finished. So what we recommend, if it's safe to do so, is to burn your paper in the hole. Clear around the hole so there's no chance of the fire getting away. light your paper with one of these. It's a good idea to use something that keeps your fingers a reasonable distance from the poo, and barbecue lighters are the ideal thing. It's also a good idea to hold the paper up like that so it burns quickly and more thoroughly. Now if there's fire restrictions on and you can't light this, the next best thing is to put it into Ziploc plastic sandwich bags, take it back and stick it in your rubbish in your bin. Okay? And the whole idea is that if your hole happens to be a little bit shallow and you've got paper and you've got poo in there, the dingoes will dig that up, or the wild dogs will dig that up, but they don't want the paper, they want the poo, so the paper just gets disposed of. So all you'd finish, if the hole's a bit too shallow, you can always put a large rock over it to ensure nothing's going to dig it up, but burn the paper if you can, or take the paper back to camp and stick it in a plastic bag. So there you go. There should be no excuse now for you not to be able to get out into the bush. Everybody sees this video and you won't find a piece of toilet paper lying anywhere, and if you do, maybe just give it a burn anyhow. Good on you guys.